Okay, continuing on with the details here. PCV, positive crankcase ventilation. I'm going to run through it on how I have it set up and explain why I have it that way. A lot of different ways to do it, apparently. There's a few right ways. I think I actually had mine hooked up wrong on my prior turbo setup. So, yeah, you get educated, and hopefully I can help it pass some of that on to you guys. So just hang tight. Let's go over it. Okay, so on this one, okay, positive crankcase ventilation. So PCV, most every car has it. Whether you're boosted or not, there is some cylinder pressure once the explosion happens in the cylinder. On the older the car is, the worse it's going to be. It's called blow by. Some of it, instead of staying getting used as energy, it seeps or blows past the rings, blow by. And that goes down, obviously, into your oil pan area. They call that the crankcase, where your crankshaft's at. Well, that pressure has to go somewhere. On older cars, if you notice a lot of leaks that you may want to check your PCV valve. A lot of them, they're very easy to access, and it's a simple test. You usually take it off and shake it. If it's real gummed up and clogged up in there, it's not flowing. If it's not flowing, pressure is building up in the engine. That's why you might have repetitive oil leaks. It seems like if it has a gasket, it's leaking. Try that. See if that doesn't help. So you have to vent that pressure some way. Whether it's naturally aspirated or boosted like this one is. It's different, though, the way you do it. When you're boosting, well, let's back up. Let's explain the process, and I'll tell you what the difference is between boosted and non-boosted. So PCV valve, I have it set right here. This is that Mazda PCV valve for the Mazda Speed. It's for turbo setups. Now, it will allow flow from here, the valve cover, where that pressure from the crankcase will come up through some holes in the cylinder head, and it accumulates in here. And this PCV valve, it's a check valve, basically. When you're at idle, and the engine vacuums the most, this valve is open. It flows that way, okay? So I've got it set up right now to where it flows into the nipple coming off the intake manifold here. So at idle, it's sucking those vapors out of here, okay? But it also likes during that time to have some fresh air sucked in with it. And so that's where this port comes in. All right, so this port I have hooked up. It comes over here to the catch can I'm using, and this is the inlet to the catch can. So air comes in, and here's the outlet, okay? So this hose here on mine, it's going to be running all the way to the back to the air filter just before the turbo. And at idle, obviously, air is being sucked in at that filter back there. It makes its way all up from the length of the car back up into here, and then goes into the engine. So during idle, fresh air is being pulled in, filtered air, mind you. It's going to be in between the filter and the turbo, so it's filtered. That air is going to be sucked in this way. It's going to be coming this way. Into here, it sucks in here. Fresh air mixes with this dirty, crankcase air, and it's sucked into the intake manifold where the burn process takes over again. So that you're not confused, this is basically just the feed for this vacuum block that I'm using, because I had several things I needed vacuum for, and on the Saturn, they don't use a whole lot of vacuum hoses like Hondas and Mitsubishis and them do. So I just had this so I can have multiple ports for it. So don't let this confuse you. Pretend that's not even there, okay? Because on a boosted setup, you may or may not be using these or need them. But at any rate, air is still being sucked into both of these right here, okay? So there's a vacuum. And that provides exactly what it needs at idle. But when you get on it and you boost the intake, you positive pressure the intake, well, boost, obviously, it comes in here through the charge, goes into the intake manifold. It would normally it's going to try to come both ways, obviously, on mine, but it would normally try to go right back in here. Well, this thing has a strong check valve made for boosted applications. A regular PCV, more than likely, is not going to have the ability to stave off that much pressure. So I recommend you get one of these. But so during boost, the air does not come back in here. It's blocked. So it can't fill back up in here. But there's still blow-by happening, right? Okay, because that's happening whether you're idling or whether you're getting on it or whatever. Well, that blow-by comes up here and goes back in here. And it goes back into the inlet to the catch can. And then from the catch can, it goes back to be sucked in where the turbo's being fed in. And that pulls it in along with the rest of the air. That then it gets boosted and sent back up this way. So why even have a catch can? Because these, the vapors coming up from the crankcase, they're actually contaminated with oil. It's like in a fine mist droplet, oil droplet. And so as it comes out of here, okay, it's going to hit inside here. And I've got some like a steel wool type material inside here to help knock it out even easier. But it gets, the fluid gets knocked out in here, okay? When I say knocked out, it breaks it out of suspension in the air molecule, and it accumulates at the bottom of this can. There's a can, that's why they call it a catch can. It catches the oil. The idea is that out of here then should only come vapor. And I say vapor gas, okay? It shouldn't have a lot of oil contaminant with it. That gets knocked out and set down in here. Over time, you'd want to check it. This one here, it's a little cheapy eBay one. Don't spend a lot of money on these. But there's like a little, like a dipstick. It'll show you, you know, you can check it periodically. On this one here, it doesn't have a drain tube on the bottom. You would just have to unscrew this canister from it and empty it. But you do want to check it from time to time. But at any rate, so hopefully only more or less, you know, air goes back here, goes back to the turbo to be sucked in as you're getting on it, okay? You get off of it, vacuum returns. The air then is flowing back from the turbo, back this way into the catch can, giving the fresh air charge to help with the crankcase that's coming here, being sucked in through here. And so that's the whole idea. So under boost, you're not getting that charge back into your engine. You're only going to be getting the crankcase blow-by that's happening while you're boosting, okay? So hopefully that explained it. That's how I'm having it set up on mine. Some people end up venting here. They'll end up putting like a filter. So they don't send it back to the air filter, whether the air filter's here or in the back, whatever it is. They'll just have like one of those mini filters sitting here. And so as you're idling, air is being sucked in through that filter and being brought just like we have here, and then brought in there. And then under boost, this check valve stops the air from being fed back this way. However, the air is still going to be coming out of here, the blow-by from your rings, right? So it goes over here into here. So if you just got a filter here, sometimes if you're having a lot of blow-by, that filter will sit there and emanate smoke, or you know, looks like some just some smoky residue, and I don't like that. I don't like having that do that. At idle it shouldn't, because like I said, there's air being sucked in here back to the valve cover. So, you know, it's not that I'm, you know, wanting to team up with the green knucklehead from Norway, whoever she is, Thunberg, but you know, I don't like polluting if I don't have to, and so I just go ahead and just run it back, and it helps keep like a negative pressure inside here, and it's just better that way. So then what would a normally aspirated setup look like? Okay, because that's for a boosted. You'd still have a PCV valve. You wouldn't need this one from the turbo model. It's just a regular factory PCV, and it would be hooked up to here just like that. Same idea, okay? During idle, it's sucking in crankcase vapors from here. And where do you get your fresh air from? Well, this one is used the same way we use it now, only on your factory tube. If you run like a aftermarket, like an AEM or some kind of cold air intake, they usually have them Some don't, most of them do. There's a nipple that comes off there. They expect you to put that in there, and that's where it would be connected to. Because your air, you'd have filtered air coming in. That filtered air would get sucked into the nipple at idle. It would dilute the crankcase vapors here, and then get pulled in by the PCV valve into your intake manifold. At full throttle, this thing still checks, but again, it wouldn't be able to hold back boost if you're just using a factory PCV. It still checks, okay? But at that point, the crankcase vapors that are happening, they're going to go exactly right back into this part right here with that nipple. And obviously when you're getting on it or at idle, air is flowing this way, okay? So it's flowing the pipe into the engine. So right here, there's like a pressure change where it's the differential where this high flowing air is going to suck the air out of here, and it feeds it right back into the engine. Same thing like on mine where back at the filter, in between the filter and the turbo, at full throttle, that's what would be happening for me. Air is being drawn into the turbo. That drawing action is actually sucking the air from the crankcase under acceleration or under boost. So it's getting its fresh air. It's just as it's coming up through here at idle, it's sucking it in, and at full throttle, it's pulling it out through centrifugal, through a Venturi effect. Okay, it's pulling it in, and that's how it would be on a standard setup, like a not naturally aspirated. To give some kind of clarity on these, I need these on here whenever you have like a boosted setup and you're running a blow-off valve and some other things. I'm actually running a fuel pressure regulator on this. This is the throttle body from the Geo Storm, so it's quite larger than the factory one. It doesn't have on it the header that you would have up here on this factory Saturn's throttle body. There's like a plastic block with a few little hard plastic lines coming off of it. There's some of your vacuum sources there. You could use that for your fuel pressure regulator and so forth. But this one doesn't have it. They actually have them, but the way it mounts up on here, it blocks them. Once you put it on the flange for the intake manifold, it blocks them out, so they're useless. So I run this so I can have fuel pressure regulator, the aftermarket fuel pressure regulator, the blow-off valve, the boost gauge, and so forth. So that's why I have this header feeding off. And whenever you have several vacuum or boost things that you need, if you keep drawing off of just the one line, it kind of will weaken the signal, I guess you can say. So I like to run individuals on it especially. So that's what this is for. And here is at the filter, I've drilled the side of the filter and put in a grommet, rubber grommet. And then this is just like a little screw-in nipple. And I literally just screwed it into the rubber. This doesn't have to take any kind of real pressure because remember, boost is never coming back here. It's just going to be crankcase pressure and fresh air feed to the engine. So it's not going to be a really super high pressure that's going to blow this out. It's in there pretty tight anyway. I basically drilled a hole to the inside diameter of one of these grommets. So the inside diameter of that right there. So that when it fit in there, it fit in super snug. And then when I put this in there, I had to actually kind of screw it in instead of pushing it in, and it makes it nice and tight. So this ain't going anywhere. It actually feels like it's bolted in. So that's just to give you an idea. That's where the feed's going to come from the catch can. All right.